first.
Okay, it's 5:30 p.m. I'd like to begin this caucus session of our council. We have one item for action this evening on the new business being one ordinance. John, would you like to take that ordinance?
I would take that ordinance.
Are there any recommended changes or additions to the agenda as presented this evening?
I have none.
Thank you. I'd like to call this April 20th, 2016 council meeting to order. Would you please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Clerk, please call the roll.
Mr. Dragish?
Yes.
Mr. Kosar?
Yes.
Mr. Cicero?
Here.
Mr. Morvay?
Here.
Mr. Tisch?
Here.
Okay, all of you have received one set of minutes from our April 6th regular council meeting. Are there any revisions to those minutes?
I have none.
If not, they stand approved and on record. Under reading of communications, Mr. Tisch?
I have received.
Mr. Cicero?
I'd like to hold mine till others are finished, please.
Mr. Morvay?
Yeah, Joe, and I apologize, I lost my letter about phase 3. If anybody had, there was a meeting and if anybody had anything to say, or was that a meeting, or were we just supposed to write in on that?
For days free?
For that phase 3.
Oh, phase 3.
Yeah.
No, there was just a meeting that was, the mayor and I attended. It was ODOT that talked about all of their different projects that were going on in Mahoning County. So,
Yeah, but there was something I got from the city that had something to do with phase 3. I lost the letter. And if there was any concerns or something from...
I'm sorry, yeah, the part of the environmental that's required by ODOT was that they send letters to all the property owners notifying that there'll be work within the right-of-way, and if there's anything, landscaping type items that you want to keep, to get them out of the right-of-way before the project started.
I see.
And then they're asking for any comments that you might have about the project. And,
I see.
because I've actually only gotten one comment from someone that has a brick mailbox out in the right-of-way.
Yeah.
Possibly will have to be removed if the project goes back that far.
Do you have a copy of that letter?
Yes.
Because I lost mine. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'll get it back to you. Okay, I'm clear what you're asking.
Okay, I'm sorry. Thank you. Let's see, the dip in the road, the house on Kirk, you're going to address.
Yeah.
Let's see, what else? Hickory Hollow, you'll address later. Communication. Okay. I don't have anything else. Thanks, John.
Mayor?
I just want to share with the group and the folks present. Councilman Cicero and I have set ourselves an assignment to talk as individuals and not speaking for council with the employees of the city and the people who sit on various committees. And we had our first meeting on Saturday, and we have our second one this coming Saturday. And what we're trying to do is to educate the people in-house, employees, people serving on committees, tell them the state of the city and how we are arriving at the point we're at, $1 million that everybody keeps talking about. But I just want council to know, and people out there to know, and people in attendance at these meetings are told in no uncertain terms that we are not speaking for council, which leads me to what I want to share with council. We had people who kept saying, well, what do you want to do? And after I was asked that the third time Saturday, I said, well, I, Bernie Kosar, in my opinion, we're going to have to put a police levy on the November ballot. But don't interpret that to mean that's what council wants. Council will have to have a meeting and determine what that is. And I would like to have some dialogue on that tonight, not necessarily at this point, but I just want to, I think we have to do that because when Joe and I attempt to present the facts of our situation in the city of Canfield, I think the people have the right to know, what is it you have in mind? Council, mayor. I said what the mayor had in mind, but let there be no doubt in your mind, I labeled it as my opinion and only mine. I didn't even include the Cicero.
So could I add to that? When the letter went out inviting people we said our purpose, as Bernie said, was to tell you our situation, our circumstances, as best we understand it. Again, we said, I don't think we were in a vacuum, and we've talked about it a lot, but we did say this is just our sense. And then we're going to tell you, and that was my role. You know, I painted the picture as clearly as I could, based on the information I have now. Then Bernie's job was to say, here's what we've done so far, because that was one of the questions we were asked. And what they thought Bernie was going to tell them was what our plans were to fix it, you know, not just what we've done to try to contain it. And then we were going to ask them, or the last item on the agenda was, here's how you can help us move forward. And I think the way we cast the meeting, it begged the question, you know, what's the solution? And I think that was my takeaway, that it's time for us now to talk about ideas to repair, you know, fix the hole in our revenue.
If I just might add one more thing. The reason we didn't want all of council there is because then it becomes, we have a quorum and we have to, the public was invited in. There's nothing to hide. It's just that these were all in-house people. People with skin in the game, and they were going to, we wanted them to go out as ambassadors and we wanted to present the facts.
Communication is tough.
Are you done?
Is it to me?
It's to you.
Okay. I want to use my time to introduce Jacob Asarco and David Hofsis. These are two honor students that I think Bernie recruited them early on to help with the analysis of our questionnaire in 2015. And I mentioned, I think they're both honor students, they're both athletes, they have big appetites. We took them out to dinner to, you know, try to repay you somewhat. Can't believe how much you guys could eat. They are outstanding young men, as you will see. Jacob has a good football career behind him at Canfield High School. He's going to Colgate, football scholarship. Done fairly well in wrestling. I think he went to the state, right?
Yep.
Did a good job there. You were in the paper every other week. David, I think he has a bigger appetite than you. I'm not sure.
Without a doubt.
David was selected to represent our city at Boys State. And I know that's quite an honor, and you did a great job. David, you told me you were going to go to YSU for a while and then become a Buckeye. And I think you mentioned something about perhaps public service.
Maybe down the road.
Maybe, I don't know. Okay, if you're going to be a lawyer, I guess we'll have to have another lawyer. But we need one more. Yeah, so these guys have prepared a summary presentation of the results of our questionnaire. No.
We'll stand. Yeah, we'll stand over here.
The cameraman could give you a hint.
Oh, yeah, we don't want to block you.
You're fine.
Yeah, just turn sideways in your goal.
Okay. Hi, everybody. I'm David. This is Jake. We are seniors at Canfield High School, and we're members of National Honor Society. And for National Honor Society, we had to do a service project. And usually everybody does like a fundraiser or something small. But we wanted to do something that would be really meaningful to the city. So we approached the mayor, and we asked him about a possible project. And he put us in contact with Councilman Cicero about distributing questionnaires to the citizens of Canfield, and then we analyze that data and have those results for you today. That's Jim Trussell, by the way.
So basically, we started off the questionnaire with an outsider's look on Canfield. and we used a website called Area Vibes. And for all of you who don't know what Area Vibes is, it's basically just a website that gives ratings all throughout the United States for people to see where they like to live. And on the bottom of the graph, you can see those are the 7 categories that they list us in. And then the letter in parentheses is what Area Vibes gave us. And when it averaged out, we ended up getting 84 out of 100. And on their website, that is deemed exceptionally livable. So that's a very good score. And the blue and red bars in the graph, those show people who agreed with Area Vibes. So as you can see, many people in the city definitely agree with what an outsider has to say on Canfield.
After analyzing the data and reading people's responses, we narrowed down what people love about Canfield into 3 general things. First, safety. People really value safety in the city. Second, our fantastic school systems that we have here at Canfield. And third, our form of government. We got a lot of praise about our form of government.
And starting off with safety, basically we asked people to describe Canfield in just one word. And we created this graphic for you. And the size of the word correlates with the amount of times that it was said in the questionnaire. So as you see, safe is by and large the biggest word, so it appeared in that question the most. So that just shows you how much people truly value their safety in Canfield. Followed closely by schools, friendly, comfortable, which are all just great things to describe the town that we live in.
We then asked people on a scale from 1 to 10, rank 10 being the highest, rank how safe you feel in Canfield. And the average score was a 9.4. That's an exceptional rating. People said in the responses, police patrol regularly, they're always visible, and people just feel safe in the city of Canfield. Also, on the graph featured on the right, we asked people to rank the importance of city services. People were to give a 1 to the most important city service to them, and a 10 to the least important. So the higher the bar represents, the more a person thinks a particular service is less important. I know that's a little confusing, but that's how it came out. People said that things that regard safety were the most important to them. So police protection, dispatch service, fire protection, things like road and ice, those were deemed the most important things for the citizens of Canfield. However, things like concert on the green, the fireworks, those were things people considered not as important.
Excuse me, can you focus a little better so we can read the x-axis?
I think we can. Oh, this projector works.
Other way, Joe.
Oh, there we go.
There you go. Okay. Give me a second there to read that.
The third thing that we found that people seem to really like about our city was our city's form of government, which is the council manager system. And over 9% of the people that we questioned said that they were in favor of our form of government. And they just, throughout the essays, they noted that they enjoyed that we were different than other cities and towns in the local Tri-County area, as well as in the essays, our city manager was very highly praised throughout.
We also narrowed down things that people had critiques for or things they thought could be improved. People thought more attention should be paid to property appearance and zoning in the city. People wanted a revamping of the green, adding things surrounding the green. And lastly, people thought there was a lack of business in Canfield that was declining, and people wanted to see an increase in business and amenities in the city.
So for property appearance and zoning, we gave them 5 city topics, and we asked them what city leaders should spend the most attention on at a scale of 1 to 5. And the average for property appearance was the highest at 3.4. So people felt that property appearance should be at the most attention of our city leaders, as well as zoning enforcement, which came in second. And as you can see at the bottom, attractiveness of their neighborhood, we asked them that too, and it came out at 8.4 on a scale of 1 to 10, but the range was quite large. Anything from 10 to 2 was the range. So people fluctuated in that category. But the reason people said property appearance was because of foreclosed houses, rental properties, abandoned lots, and zoning violators, just causing eyesores throughout the city.
Although not at the top of the list, business came up countless times throughout people's essays. people stated that things like adding grocery stores, adding restaurants, would not only increase revenue in the city, but also add to the community. Many people pointed to other communities like Hudson, which have a large green with businesses surrounding it, as something that the city should strive towards.
But by and large, the largest problem that we faced while looking at these questionnaires was definitely just the lack of communication within the city. And we feel that that is definitely a two-way street, both between the citizens and the city. They should be sharing ideas and thoughts throughout the whole entire process, especially in the financial situation that we're facing at the moment, as well as the ballot coming up in November.
We also found that the lack of communication really hindered people's opinions about city officials and also influenced the demographics of the questionnaire. We asked people to rank city officials in terms of the job they were doing, and negative ratings stem from two places. One, people associated a negative experience with a specific department. For example, if somebody received a very high water bill that month because of a leak or something, they associated that bad experience with possible of a department head. Also, people lack knowledge about specific departments. Many people didn't know we had an IT manager, things like that. This lack of knowledge about many of our city officials made people not either answer the graph or the question or simply put a negative rating. Also, the demographic polled was mostly the older population. Over 60% of respondents were over the age of 55. And we thought this was a staggering number considering the mixed group that we have in the city of Canfield. Also, town hall attendance is very low. As you can see it on a regular basis, 63% of respondents have never attended a town hall meeting. Most complained about an inconvenient time that the meetings are held because of how people work.
So we thought, where is this disconnect happening between communication? And on the graph on the bottom, on the x-axis, it shows, we gave them just news outlets, and we asked people how they got their information, and they could list as many as applied. And because our demographic was such an older population, you can see that more traditional means of getting their news, like the Vindicator, Town Crier, were used, and you can see that city website is barely even shown on the graph. And that just shows that the younger generation, all they use is technology and phones and the internet to get their information. The other staggering thing is the word of mouth bar is higher than local television news for our questionnaire, and that just generates a multitude of misinformation.
We asked citizens to give ideas for better ways to communicate with the citizens. People suggested these as follows. People suggested staggering meeting times to accommodate different work schedules, improve the signage on the green, since a lot of people get their news about the city through the green. A newsletter, either an online copy or a hard copy, that would be sent to people. They thought this could be a regular way for which they could get their information. Robocalls and email to register users, so people who could put down their phone number or their email address, and information could be sent to them at the city's will. Some people felt that updates should be sent with the water bills to make sure that they got the information. Mail, flyers, TV, common ones. Some people suggested producing a Canfield application for smartphones, since everybody's on their phone nowadays. Updating the city website. Some people felt that they couldn't get the information they wanted on the city website and that it needed some improvements. And lastly, use organizations like Rotary and the schools, who have a good track record of communicating with the younger generation.
And basically, after it was all said and done, we basically just sat down and thought of a few opinions of our own. We brought it down into three main categories. The first is just, without a doubt, getting the younger population more involved in the city, either through social media outlets or online or robocalls / a newsletter, because they're basically the driving force behind the city in the years to come. So we both think that it's crucially important for them to be aware of things going on in the city. Second would just be to shine light on the successes of the city. Not everything in the paper has to be something bad. City officials should definitely try to showcase what the city is doing very well as getting lesser known city officials also in the spotlight, showing things that our IT department, for instance, is doing very well, to show people that they're making the city a better place to live. And lastly, just attracting small new businesses as well as just small amenities, just to help people socialize throughout the city. And we believe that that is definitely crucial to the future of Canfield.
And that is all.
Thank you.
So, guys, I have a question. for you.
Yeah, questions if anybody has any.
Yeah, so, the survey you sent out, it was sent out, basically paper, right?
Yes.
Yeah, we went and,
So,
It was about 4 pages long with essays and multiple choice questions.
so one of the disconnects with the younger people may be that they didn't have an opportunity to look at it because they only look at things that are electronic.
yeah,
Yeah, we went to, they had,
we went to parent-teacher
yeah,
conference.
parent-teacher conferences, to
Just
try to
sat
give
there
to some of the younger parents. And we may have gotten a couple back, but not many people felt they had the time to fill it out or send it in.
You know, one thing that we've learned here is that if we're going to communicate with X, Y, Z millennials, it's got to be electronic.
Yeah.
It's got to be.
Yeah, gone are the days of
Yeah,
actually holding a tangible object. It's
Yeah.
all just on your phone.
yeah.
Question,
Yeah,
how
yeah.
many respondents did you have in total?
We sent out over 500 and we got about 80 back, so that's about a 14% return rate.
Which is about what you want. You want about a 10% return rate on these type of questionnaires. So 14% was what we were looking for.
Yep. Anybody else?
Excellent presentation.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
If you were old enough, I think either one of you would be a better mayor than I.
I second that.
A lot of good information, just for you to know, we hear you, we're going to try. We're going to change the way we try to communicate. We're in the process of.
We're trying that now.
Excellent job.
Thank you, guys. Thanks so much.
Okay. Are you done?
Yes.
Mr. Warino.
Yeah, with communications, I've received a notification from ODOT that they've received our legislation on the 446 paving, and I've gotten back their signed copy of that legislation as well. They still don't have a date as to when it's going to take place, but we're in sync. Also received another water request. This individual lives on Hillside Drive. They had a hose bib outside the house that was leaking or broken. Todd had verified that as well and taken pictures of it. They're asking for relief on the sewer charge, and that would just be on any credit that the city would get in response from the county on the same issue. So if you want to act on that or think about it, deal with that. They agree to pay the water bill that was used, but any pass through the city, that is what they're asking for. Also received a letter from the villas at Fair Park, and some of you can recall a few years ago they had approached the city about the brush and debris, not the brush, debris I mean, but the brush and trees from Fair Park encroaching onto their property. We hired Buckeye about 2 years ago to cut that back. Well, it's moved back again into their property. They're asking for some relief there, as well as this time they're citing that there's a few dead trees in the area. I just received this yesterday, so I hadn't gotten out there, but we'll take a look at it and get some costs together, and you'll be hearing more about that in the coming weeks. Also received correspondence from the school system. They'll be having their annual Civic Day on Friday, May 6th, and I hope most of you have already responded to Patty as to whether you can attend that or not. Typically, our portion takes place about 10:30 here in this room, and then we're invited to a luncheon at St. Michael's at noon. And lastly, I don't know if each of you gotten a copy, but we had gotten a request from the Joint Fire District for the waiving of permit fees for the proposed fire station on Herbert Road, and that's something that we should have some further discussion on in light of our situation currently. That's all I have under correspondence.
Joe, I have a couple questions for you.
Yes.
Were you going to address Kirk?
In my reports.
Oh, okay, okay.
It's next up.
Gotcha. All right, thank you. What about the water issue with the fairgrounds?
I was talking to Bev, we're going to try and get something scheduled shortly now that the weather's finally turned and it's safe to open that system back up. what I've asked is that they not do anything until we're there to witness when they open the valve to see what's going through with nothing supposedly open. And then from that point, we'll start looking.
Okay.
Joe, did we happen to read the meter when it was shut off and the reading today? I mean, because
Yes, yeah, we've actually, well, not today as yet, but we did read it a week or so after it was shut off, and nothing had passed through there with the valve closed.
And nothing's passed through since then, or we haven't read it recently?
That I couldn't say, but I would have to say yes with the valve being closed.
We do read it every quarter, even though that valve's shut.
That may have been how this thing surfaced, that they'd gotten the bill, which it was supposedly out of service, and the bill was in, I forget the number, but it's pretty high.
With regard to the one water issue that you had with the leak, I would be in favor of extending the credit for whatever the sewer portion is, if in fact we're going to get a similar credit from MVSD.
I would be in favor of the same.
You're the same.
Okay, then I can go ahead and make the request to the county and pass that on.
Is that it? Okay. Under reports of committees, city manager and department heads. Mr. LaCicero.
No, nothing.
Mr.
Oh,
Moore.
I have a bit of information, I'm not sure where it would fit, but the Super Nationals are coming to the fairgrounds. Anybody know who they are?
Yeah.
Everybody but me, probably, right?
Superman.
Yeah. I was told it's June 24th, 25th, and 26th,
That's correct.
and they bring in a lot of business. Is that
Can't get a
correct?
hotel room.
No kidding. So it's time to rent out a room. I could rent a room out. Yeah. I'm gonna have to learn who these people are.
You'll do it once and you'll remember.
Don't stand in the middle of the road.
Yeah.
What's going on?
Thank you, guys.
Mr. Morvay.
The fire district is, trying to build this new fire station. I know Joe sent some correspondence regarding fees for hookups and such. I think the fire district is asking that those be waived, Joe, I believe. And just, I don't know, citizens pay, and I know it's township and city, it's a joint fire district, so there's some funds in there from the township. However, it's all our own money, so whether we waive the fees or not waive the fees, they're paying the fees one way or the other. We're using the citizens' money to pay the fees. So I would be in favor of waiving them, only because I sit on the fire district and it could help us, but that's just my 2 cents. So there's four other guys here.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
I too would be in favor of waiving that, but what is their financial condition of that joint fire district? Do they have the money to pay those fees? Because we obviously need the money. And you're right, we're taking it out of one pocket, putting it in the other. Are they in good financial shape, or are they in bad? I believe that building is paid for already. Is that true?
The fire district is very prudent, let me just say that, and that the finances of the fire district are in very good shape. I'll say that, but if we use this $15,000 to pay fees, hookup fees or whatever, then we just use we have to dip in for something else for that $15,000. So that's what I'm saying, it's the public's money anyway that we're using. Yeah, we have some township money in there to consider, but in the long run, it's benefiting both the city and the township. That's just my 2 cents, I don't know.
I think we all understand that, but you can see the financial straits that we're in here. I have mixed emotions. Yes, I want to let it go and say, no, we don't need that other side of the coin we're talking about.
Yeah.
My father used to say you'd grab onto a razor if you were drowning.
Yeah.
Okay. We might be just about at that position.
And just keep in mind, it wasn't near that amount. It was only, what, $2,000 or whatever that the fire district just donated to the hazmat.
900 and some dollars.
900 and some dollars, yeah.
City's portion.
And they, yeah, so. I think we can work together, though.
Is this discussion time on this topic? Or are we pushing, are we gonna, how do we decide what we're gonna do with that?
I just had a comment. I don't
Oh,
know that
okay.
we're really
I don't think this is the
deciding
time to make a
Yeah, there's
decision.
no resolution
Well,
before
how
you
come
at
he
this
gets to
point.
talk about
Yeah,
it?
there's no.
He just brought it up.
Okay.
What is the difference between our permit fee cost that we would be receiving versus the cost of actually doing the tap in for the water and the connection for the sanitary sewer? I'm going to presume that they would still pay whatever the direct out-of-pocket cost is to tap the water line and to tap the sewer, and that what they're asking for is a waiver on, in essence, our fee above that cost. Is that correct?
Well, they haven't broken it down in that fashion, but at the very least, I would certainly make that same suggestion that there are some upfront costs that the city is going to have in issuing those permits and the time spent on doing the inspections and things like that. So there, but you know, the way, I'm sure you're all familiar, the way that the program is set up, you know, we win some, we lose some based on permit fees. You know, there are some that come in at a lower amount and more time is spent, but then you make it up on the higher ones. So it weighs itself out. But yeah, at the very least, I would, you know, hope that we would cover the cost of purchasing the meter, the installation that would be paid in NEF, and those types of costs that are out of pocket to the city.
Yeah, absolutely.
But it's,
Makes
So
sense.
again, are we gonna,
No,
we're not talking about it? Okay.
there's no resolution.
Okay, good, good.
We won't have
I
one,
wanna,
but
I wanna play by the rules. Everybody got to talk but me. That's how.
we'll have one, just not today.
What is the timing on needing this? I mean, when are they, you're out to bid now?
Right, right. We're not close.
Okay, but the bid number, I'm going to guess, has to include the permit fees. So
I'm receiving calls now, people want to know what the permit fees are.
Okay, so maybe we do need to have some discussion, whether we do that right now or whether we think about it and close to the end of the meeting, or what's the bid due date?
I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. It just went out.
Okay.
So what, normally it's what, 30 days, 60 days?
I don't know how your contract-
typically, I think
Well,
we're required a minimum
similar.
of 2 weeks to accept bids, but I have not gotten a copy of the ad or anything.
I don't. No, bids are due.
I say we find a resolution. I say we find a resolution for this for our next council meeting. I think that'd be appropriate. That way we have some
At least by-
discussion.
yeah.
And, right.
But if they're,
I'm saying for the next meeting, we'll have it for a resolution for the next meeting. Okay? Anything else, Mr. Wabe?
No, I'm good.
Mayor Kozar?
I have nothing to report.
Joe?
Okay, we have one item on the agenda this evening, and that's legislation to be dealt with, amending the appropriation ordinance to make appropriations for current expenses and other expenditures of the city of Canfield, state of Ohio, during the fiscal year ending December 31st, 2016. And again, basically, all we're doing at this particular time is appropriating. We're stating that we are, because of the amount of donations that we've received, and we still have a little ways to go, we are appropriating the amount of what it would cost to run the concerts, or at least getting us into that area that we wouldn't have to come back and ask for additional money. And I think to date, we have about 3,000 in there. We still need about another 1,000 to reach our goal on that particular venue. But from the discussion we've had in the past, we do have funds available if we don't meet that goal this year that we can subsidize it with. But I'm hopeful that your efforts, as well as Mr. Dixie's efforts, come up with the balance of the funding that's needed, and we can make that an expenditure that's not coming out of the general fund to hold those concerts. But again, all we're doing this evening is appropriating that so that we have an area that we can expend the money to put on the concerts.
So our
One other item on-
intention is then, Joe, to replace that money with donations? Is that our intention?
Well, it's just stating that that's what the spending is. Our anticipation is the donations are going to cover that spending.
Is there a committee or something that is associated with the concerts on the green?
Selecting? Selecting concerts?
No, just somebody, who was the instrument that put those together? Was it the city?
City manager?
Was it
Yeah,
the city?
we work with the musicians' local union, and they hire the various acts. There's 2 concerts that are, well, it's the same, the Canfield Community Band, we actually assigned those to, and Del Sinchak with the musicians' local union gets us the other acts.
Where I was going with this is, I know Rotary's gonna have a board meeting here. And if I had a letter I could present, I could probably get some funds donated to that cause.
Yeah, we have a letter that we sent to all the local banks within the
Okay,
city
good.
limits. I can get a copy of that and
Good.
modify it to the request of the Rotary.
Okay, great.
Yeah, we have a board meeting Friday.
Yeah, I gotta have it tonight though, because I have to get it so that it can be voted on Friday.
Patty can get that.
Okay, great.
Hey, Joe, I have one more question. I've heard that there's a certain amount of money that we need to pay for royalties to play music, right? Certain
Right.
people's music.
That's
Then
part
I
of
heard
this
a
budget.
number of $450 for insurance.
I think it's, no, they're-
And is there such a number or
no,
not?
our current insurance covers us for that event and the 4th of July, the different events, the Memorial Day, those types of events.
Okay.
The only
Good.
misunderstanding was the licensing fee from the BMI, which is a
Gotcha. So the only-
copywriting
Right.
type organization. This is something new to us that just came this year, and that fee is around $350. It's not $450, but that's the only new cost associated with this event.
Thank you.
What you may be thinking of, which you may have heard, Mr. Cicero, is that when people have used the green, not the city, we require them to purchase insurance and name the city as an additional insured. So that's not this case because we're the party using the green. But when we've had like the Junior Canfield Women's League utilize the green, they have to buy insurance, name us as an insured.
The Dairy Queen.
You're right, so there's a cost there. And you may have heard about that cost as an insurance
Is it
cost.
400? I heard a number of.
I don't know what amount it is, but we
Maybe
don't
it was
have to do that.
misquoting. So anybody who, because we've been kicking around the idea of just having a jam session or something at the end of somewhere in the summer to attract a different crowd. Do that on a Saturday afternoon. No bands would just come to play because they love to play music, not looking for any
Who would
money.
be putting that on?
Well, everything is in the air. It's Courtney Larson she's an outstanding musician on her own right. And she's connected to some young bands that said they would love to play. And they don't want any money, they just want to play. And she was asking me whether there are licenses she needs and this and that. And I was going to take it offline and get that.
Okay.
But if there's $450 involved, it's going to really make it more difficult.
The copyright license which we're purchasing would cover us for the year for any musical events, whether it's one event or 20 events.
Again, thank you.
And the other item on the ordinance, just a typo, if you would, on page 11. We're almost in the it's in the wrong note. There we go. Yeah, on page 11, right near the top, it lists the East Main Street Sidewalk Grant Fund, and that's, been closed out, there's all zeros in there. But underneath it says total North Broad Street safety, that should read the total of the East Main Street update, or total East Main Street Grant Fund. And we made the correction on the original to be signed this evening, but just you can make that note on your own paper. Other things to report, the mayor and I attended the Canfield Township meeting last Tuesday, and what we presented the township trustees was a notice that we had asked them to put attached to their permits whenever they issue a permit for a new home or structure in the Westbury development. And basically it notifies the builders, contractors, and suppliers to use Gibson Road as their haul road or travel route, and that we've imposed the 3-axle limitation on the roads coming off of Herbert Roads. They've agreed to do so with regard to that. You'd mentioned Kirk. We did get into the property and took samples for the asbestos. Those were sent to the lab, and they're anticipating a 2-week turnaround on that. So I would imagine by the end of next week we should have the results as to whether we need to address asbestos in the demolition plans or not. And the other property on Hickory Hollow, I have sent a citation out, and with, I believe there's 9 violations of the city's property maintenance code, and that's being served on the property owner. The chief had also had an opportunity to meet with him at the property, and from his words, it's worse than it was before we had cleared it out. It's just, again, cluttered with debris. He was addressing that by letter to the court, notifying him that he's violated the provisions of the court action. And I haven't received a copy of that as yet, but once I do, I will certainly forward a copy of that to you as well. I don't know if Mark can add anything to that or not.
Well, we expect to have them in court in April, or I'm sorry, in May, and we're going to take it from there. I don't want to get into what I intend to do or what that case involves in a public meeting, but I think we're in a good place.
And that's all I have on the reports this evening. Okay. Todd?
The month of April, we were out to plow and salt twice. We've been keeping the crews busy, rebuilding basins. We've started mowing. We're seeding all the areas where we had water breaks last fall and during the winter. Basically just trying to do all our spring stuff before we start mulching and edging.
Patty, Kristen, and I have been helping Vicki process all the mail for income tax returns this past week. As we're opening them and going through them, we are reviewing to make sure that the W-2s and 1040s are enclosed with it. Vicki is immediately sending out letters asking for that part of the information that day so that hopefully we can get these closed out quicker, because the returns are not complete until we have all the paperwork. The state auditors finished their cash basis testing last week. They will be back in June. Hopefully, they're hoping that they complete the audit by the end of August. And on May 3rd, the Office of Criminal Justice Services is going to be here to conduct a compliance audit for the OVI Task Force grant.
Okay.
For the month of April, we issued 11 permits for a total valuation of $125,338.
Chief.
Before I give my report, I just want to compliment you guys. You don't seem like high school seniors. You're beyond your years, and compliment you guys. Your parents should be proud of you, and extend the opportunity. If you'd like, you can get a hold of me and do a ride along with one of our officers, if you'd like, on a Friday night.
Unless you've already been in the back of one of those.
He means as a
put you in front. Well, good job. You guys got bright futures, and good luck. Seriously, but don't forget, take me up on that offer. I'd like to do that for you guys.
It's fun, guys.
You might get a free pass.
Free what? To continue on from last meeting, I got patrol statistics for the first quarter of the year. January, February, and March, our officers conducted 1,337 radar zones. Community-oriented policing, one-on-one, face-to-face contacts with residents, 701. Residence checks, 14,235. Total arrests for the first quarter of the year were 69. Total traffic stops were 704. Total total accidents, 19. Total drug arrests, 23 drug arrests, 14 OVI arrests, and a total of 113 additional citations. That's all I have.
I'm sorry. I guess I had a question too, just kind of I clarify, I guess we spoke about it a little bit earlier, but I guess maybe a little bit more information on the 911, the calls, like kind of update us on kind of maybe where we stand or
Yes.
what's going on.
Yes, I'll do the best I can to
Sure.
explain a complicated situation as best as I understand it, and I've done everything I can to stay on top of the situation. As it stands, it appears that there is a lot of misinformation in the public amongst political figures throughout the county. Just a lot of people don't truly understand what's happening. No decisions have been made as of yet, and there is a state mandate that by 2018 there has to be only 3 answering points per county for 911. And technically what it means is only 3 answering points can receive tax fund 911 tax funding. And currently there's 8 in Mahoning County. We're one of the 8, and everybody recently has heard or read or heard about or reviewed the COG. That's the combining of Austintown, Boardman, and Mahoning County in the 2 dispatch centers. And they basically just submitted for a grant to put up additional towers for radio systems. So no decisions have been made on which PSAPs and what 911 answering points will receive that funding, and the funding only is for computer upgrades, software upgrades. County 911 tax money does not fund personnel, so there is a scare amongst people that they hear that there's going to be shrunk down to 3. The only thing that we have an opportunity to lose is funding for upgraded CAD software, upgraded computer hardware. They've never funded our employees. There's no way that they can fund our employees with that, so Canfield doesn't have to necessarily worry about losing their dispatch center, but that's been the problem. 911 and dispatch has been confused. Ultimately, we will get our 911 calls, we just won't be the main answering point. For example, and we're talking only about cell phone 911 calls, not landline 911 calls. I think the number is somewhere around 70% of the 911 calls are through 911 or cell phone calls, not landlines. A lot of people have got rid of their landlines, and so if a 911 call comes in on 224 at Route 46 in the square, as it stands today, that 911 call goes to Mahoning County Dispatch. They one-button it over to Canfield, and we dispatch accordingly. And it never was that way. We always got our calls direct unless a different tower took the call. So there's a lot of questions that need answered. No decisions have been made. It was brought to my attention this week that somebody was under the impression that decision had been made and Canfield was not going to be one of the 3 answering points. And that's not accurate at all. I sit on that executive board and there have been no vote, and that's just bad information. And I'll update you as often as I can. So the county prosecutors involved, they're looking to the state attorney general for an opinion on how to handle certain situations. So there's a lot of questions that remain out there, and I'll keep you up to date. And certainly our dispatch center has a lot of responsibility. We dispatch for more than Canfield. And consolidation is the route that a lot of that's the goal of the state. The practical end of it is that it has cost dispatch centers a lot more money than they had expected. But right now that's the popular thing to do, and we're trying to figure out what's best to do for me, for Canfield, and a county in whole. And we'll do everything we can to secure that additional funding. There's other ways that we are looking at to receive funding to, even if we're not one of the 3, to get our CAD upgraded without 911 tax dollars. So there's several avenues that I'm working at. I've never been told by anybody in this room or anybody in our community that they do not want a dispatch center. I think that would be a tremendous loss for our community if we did lose our dispatch center, but whatever decision's made on who the final 3 are in the county does not mean our dispatch center is going to close, and it does not mean that we're not going to dispatch for Canfield Fire, Green Fire, Ellsworth, Berlin, whoever it may be. It just simply means that that funding for a CAD upgrade is not going to be there. So that's pretty much where it stands. And one thing I can assure you, though, is that we are dispatching for other agencies, and I want to make it perfectly clear, similar to if we were to consider policing for another community, I will never, nor will my staff, ever take away from the services we provide Canfield. There's a threshold, and if we ever become inefficient or not effective, then our goal is never to get to that point. Where we're at right now, I'm very comfortable. I haven't had a single complaint from any of the agencies. They're very happy with the effectiveness and efficiency of our people, and Canfield Fire and Canfield Police have nothing's made it to me anyways. So that's my promise to you, we won't overstretch.
Okay. So, and I understand 911, it's easy to remember, but realistically, if I have your phone number programmed in my cell phone in the fire district,
yes,
I'm better off calling that number and going right direct to you, right?
And so many fire chiefs, police chiefs across the state are instructing or suggesting to their communities to do that. Yeah, 911 was supposed to be a simple, easy way to get emergency medical attention, and it's gotten complicated.
Yeah, it actually probably takes longer to do 911 because it has to be routed, whereas I could have your phone number, the police and the fire, right in my cell phone, hit the button, and I got you.
Yes. Again, many fire departments are advertising their non-emergency numbers or emergency 10-digit numbers, or whatever the digits are. I apologize, but whatever the numbers are, every community has a phone number other than 911, and they're encouraging their communities to put those in their phones.
Is there something that we could do in the way of communicating, if that's the safest thing for Canfield? Maybe use JT and maybe our Facebook page to.
I would just caution that there's other options. I wouldn't want to
make that as a main platform.
Okay.
Right.
Well, that's my question.
Right.
Yeah, there's options available, and because 911 certainly serves its purpose, even though it's been complicated. So. Yeah, that's where it stands. It's super complex. It's super confusing, and I hope I did a.
No, thank you. No, I had several questions asked to myself.
Yeah, no decisions have been made, and I've never been instructed that room's on its way out if we're not one of the 3. So that's not my plan.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Mark.
Yeah, I'd like to report on one matter tonight, and that's the changeable copy sign ordinance. I gave Joe about 8 copies of the proposed changeable copy sign ordinance. And I'd like to thank Mike. He's been great to work with, provided a lot of information to me as we've gone down this road. And if you think about it visually, digital signs can be all this. We see them in other parts of our region. Where we've ended up after speaking with members of council and with planning and zoning and working with Mike is here. That this is what we're talking about allowing. This would be an allowable sign, otherwise fine in the city. And we're talking about changeable copy that would be this, okay? Specifically, it would be monochromatic, consisting of one color with a black background. They could only exist in B3, M1, and S zoning districts, except that no signs would be allowed in the historical district area, not design review, because that's most of the commercial area, but the historical preservation area. And there's 17 or 18 regulations that would apply to these. No spinning messages, no video, no animation. We've really taken that, which is a large screen TV, basically, and allowed it to be a digital message board, which I think is what was intended by MCCTC and others in the community. I don't think anybody's ever come forward and wanted to do anything except change a copy on a sign occasionally. So that's what this ordinance provides. So I would appreciate your input. I'd like to have it on the agenda for the end of May meeting, the second meeting in May. Now, every sign would need to still comply with our sign ordinance. So if you think of this as an example, this total sign still needs to be allowed to be placed where it's at. This total size needs to still comply with our requirements. Everything in our sign ordinance still applies. And we've added that the changeable copy portion here can be no more than 25% of the total sign area, okay? Again, that fits in with what MCCTC proposed. And the reason I keep going back to them is not because they're the white-hot applicant, but because their presentation was a really good sign. It was tastefully done. It wasn't animation. It wasn't spinning, rotating, nuisance to traffic, etc. So this is where we ended up. That's what this ordinance is intended to reflect. And in the interim, I think planning and zoning, with the exception of one member, agrees with this for the most part. Would you?
I think so, right.
Okay. Design review weighed in, we got their opinion. So if you look at this and you're comfortable with this and moving this forward as an addition to section 118303, then I'm perfectly fine letting MCCTC come in for an adjustment, so long as we tailor the adjustment to be what this ordinance is going to end up being, right?
Right.
If the timing doesn't fit them in terms of getting this done, they can certainly come in for an adjustment, and we grant them adjustments based on what we have here, which frankly, I think they would comply with based on what I saw. But I'm pretty happy with it. I don't want to speak for Mike, but I think we did a pretty good job. We have an expert in town, Bruce Neff, who runs a digital sign company nationwide. And so we have sent this to him just for his input. I'm not married to anything I do. I can accept change and criticism, so I think we got a pretty good job, but we did send it to him. He's out of town. He'll weigh in tomorrow or the next day and get back to us, but we might as well tap that resource that we have right in town, and Bruce has always been willing to help. So that's where we ended up. It's been a bit of a road, but I think we ended up in a good spot. I mean, my first draft was all about this and limiting this, and now we ended up with what I think is much more pleasing. And Donnie, you were a big part of this. When you said monochromatic, it really rang a bell in my head. And Mike did some research, and Bruce Neff turned us on to some stuff, and it was the answer that I had been struggling to find. So you'll have that in your packets this week.
Great.
Joe, when Bruce does weigh in, could you just kind of give us like a snapshot of his comments and maybe email that out to us?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, my plan, Mr. Morvay, was when you're going to get a copy of this Friday in your packets. I'm hoping to hear from him before then, and I'll make the changes, assuming we agree with them, so that you'll end up getting from me what he's weighed in on.
Okay.
Great.
Okay.
Wonderful. Okay, we good? Okay. Under persons desiring additional information from department heads, may I ask that you step forward to the podium, state your name and address clearly for the record, and keep your questions to 3 minutes maximum per person and no more than 30 minutes total. Your questions must only pertain to each department head's report this evening. Okay, with nobody coming forward to have any additional information from department heads, I would excuse any of the city employees since your information is already done, or anybody to ask any questions. If you feel free to leave. If you like to, if you want to stay, you can stay. Under recognition of persons desiring to speak before council, may I ask that you step forward to the podium, state your name and address clearly for the record, and keep your comments brief. Frank McKeon.
Good evening, I'm Frank McKeon. I reside at 220 Glenview. First of all, I'd like to thank Chief Calucci for that excellent report. It's great to have that technical meeting minutes for all to see. And as Mr. John has pointed out, safety is a big concern of our citizenry here at Canfield. At our last meeting, while discussing building maintenance ordinances, the 2-year term limits were injected into the conversation. Let me mention that council persons have no operating or executive responsibilities in enforcement of these ordinances. Whether you're elected for 2 weeks, 2 months, or 2 years, it's It's outside of your area of responsibility. The city manager and his staff are responsible. You're a legislative body. You can be elected for 3 terms of 2 years, 6 years is plenty. The term limits issue is getting old. Lack of candidates has been blamed on term limits, but that issue has been proven to be in error. You have nothing to do with enforcing ordinances. If you are dissatisfied with such, let the city manager know. After all, he serves at your pleasure. There's a house on West Main that I brought up in the last meeting. Has anything been done with the situation in that city, with that house? As I showed photographs and...
That's one down by
I think this is the time.
Fairway Drive? Or Fairway.
It's down on the other Ford dealership.
The zoning inspector advised me that you'd sent a letter on it.
Continuing on, Mr. Cicero, a couple of meetings ago, talking about charter amendments, you quoted me as saying Frank 3, Council 0.
It's actually 6-0, I think it was. All right, is that your correction?
I said that was not correct, and you were going to look into the record to verify your statement. Have you been able to do so? Because I would like to stand corrected if that was the case.
I found 6-0.
You mentioned 3-0, and you mentioned my name, and I didn't mention my name.
You pointed.
Yeah, this is a time for the public to speak. I don't know if this is the right
sorry,
forum to be going back and forth.
Yeah, about 30 seconds.
All right,
Frank,
I
say what you
got
gotta
hooked
say.
again. I got hooked again. I apologize.
All right, thank you. And Mr. Keish gave an interesting talk about charter reform, the charter reform of city government that was enacted in 1970. Our population was around 5,000 at that time. Today it's about 7,400, or about a 50% increase. It's true that city council can appoint a manager, but there's nothing to say that he or she cannot be elected. In today's political world, I believe there is an interest for people to have a say in who represents them, who is running their government, be it local or national. Our process for
Your 3 minutes is up, Frank.
is done with no public notification or input. The process did not even get a second reading.
Is it 3 minutes?
It's 3 minutes.
Then I think we should enforce the rules of this body so that we can get to other business that's more pressing, that is strategic planning, how we're going to fix our budget, both short-term and long-term. I think those topics are much more pertinent to the city than this. So I would like you to please enforce the rules.
There is no 3-minute term limit on people addressing council.
Is there any limit?
There is no limit, and to be frank about it, Frank,
Yes.
you have the right to attend meetings, and council has an obligation to conduct their meetings in public.
Right.
The citizens of any public entity have no right to address council. Council has opened up this portion of the meeting to allow people to address council, but they can allow that for the time they want to allow it. They can't act arbitrarily, and they understand that. And if they intend to impose a 3-minute moratorium or time limit on you, they'll have to do it on everybody else. But that's what I'm hearing. And you don't have the right to speak as long as you want to speak. You simply don't.
The agenda says 3 minutes. The agenda says 3 minutes.
That's for the portion regarding department heads. But if council wants to impose a 3-minute requirement, then I'd suggest you do that, and we'll amend the rules to provide that. But you have no right to speak as long as you want to speak.
I never said that.
Right. And if they're saying 3 minutes is it, then 3 minutes is it.
If there is a 3-minute rule, let's set
Sounds
that
like they're imposing one right now.
It's set.
Well, when does it begin?
This meeting
Right
apparently.
now.
Well, you just impose it. Is my 3 minutes beginning now?
No.
The timer already went off, Frank, from when you started.
Okay.
There was nothing that said prior to my speaking that you had a 3-minute term limit.
There was nothing that was said prior to your speaking that you could go on as long as you wanted to. If council has said 3 minutes is it tonight, then 3 minutes is it.
All right.
That's it.
You're done.
Where do we stand? Am I done?
You're done.
Well, just
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank
McHugh.
you.
I'll address it in other meetings.
Under old business, there is none. Under new business, as per the provisions of section 4.05 of the Charter of City of Canfield, I move the council dispense with the requirement of full reading of the proposed ordinance and authorize it by title only. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second, Mr. Morvay. Discussion? Clerk, please call the roll.
Mr. Dragish?
Yes.
Mr. Cosar?
Yes.
Mr. LaCicero?
Yes.
Mr. Morvay?
Yes.
Mr. Tisch?
Yes.
As per the provisions of section 4.05 of the Charter of City of Canfield, I move the council dispense with the requirement of 2 readings of the proposed ordinance and authorize adoption of the same upon its first reading. Do I have a second? Second, Mayor. Discussion? Clerk, please call the roll.
Mr. Dragish?
Yes.
Mr. Cosar?
Yes.
Mr. LaCicero?
Yes.
Mr. Morvay?
Yes.
And Mr. Tisch?
Yes.
Mr. President, I have an ordinance amending ordinance 2016-5 annual appropriation ordinance to make appropriations for current expenses and other expenditures of the City of Canfield, State of Ohio during the fiscal year ending December 31st, 2016, and we move for passage.
Second.
Second, Mr. Tisch. Discussion? Public comments? Clerk, please call the roll.
Mr. Dragish?
Yes.
Mr. Cosar?
Yes.
Mr. LaCicero?
Yes.
Mr. Morvay?
Yes.
Mr. Tisch?
Yes.
And the number is?
2016-10.
Thank you. Councilman's comments? Mr. Tisch?
Yes. Last council meeting, we talked briefly about the charter, and we talked briefly about conscience on the green. This evening, I guess I'd like to call everybody's attention to the fact that, in my view, and I think in all the other members of council's view, we have some issues with our budget. We have a reduction in revenue in a couple of funds, and we have increase in our expenditures in several funds as well. Probably the major increases in expenditures relates to our salt consumption, cost of salt overall, our cost of personal services, and an integral part of the personal service increase in cost has to do with our hospitalization contract, which I believe between 2015 and 2016 was an increase of about 25%. Is that pretty close to that number?
25%.
Okay. And then our street paving program. We have seen a rather significant increase in that area, in that our 2015 street resurfacing program was costing us, for 1 mile of paving, $186,348 per mile of paving. We have, because of our increase in paving costs, fallen behind in our street paving program in the city. At one time, we were on a scale of being able to repave roadways on a 10-year cycle. As we stand right now, if we look back on that 10-year cycle, we probably have 30 streets that would need paving based on that 10-year cycle. If we take a look at what the increase in cost and resurfacing has been and what we have been budgeting in the neighborhood of $200,000 a year for resurfacing, we are going to have a rather significant shortfall. One of the things that I would like council to consider as we take a look at what we're going to do as far as revenue is concerned is take a look at sufficient revenue to allow us to get back on a significant street paving schedule. And based on our current costs and our useful life of 10 to 15 years on streets, we need to be putting in about $500,000 a year into street paving. Obviously, we're not going to have that this year. And without revenue enhancement, we're not going to have that in future years. So one of the areas that I think that we need to be looking at is increased revenue in the street construction maintenance and repair fund. And if what we are looking at is a levy to generate that kind of money, in my view, that needs to be about 2 mills, would generate about $400,000, and with what we're putting into the budget right now, that would get us to $500,000. But that's just one area where I see that we have increased costs in operation of the city, coupled with our decreased revenues over the last 7-8 years. Thank you.
Thank you, Chuck.
Mr. Cicero?
Well, I would think we ought to be talking about that. If this is the appropriate time, we need to talk about what we're going to do with revenue. Are we going to, let me ask this, do we all agree that we want a levy? John? A levy, not how much, but a levy versus income tax.
I would agree. I would agree with that.
Don?
I
So-
agree with that.
All right, so that much we agree on, and that much we could communicate, any one of us could communicate that to folks, right? We are looking at a levy, we just don't know how much yet. Chuck just mentioned one piece, and that is obviously a very important piece, as called out by your report. And you think it would need to be 2 mills. That's your take, right?
Well,
I mean,
yes.
2 mills
Yeah.
would generate about 400,000.
Yeah,
That's
all right.
correct.
So let's set that aside for a second and say, okay, what about Parks and Recreation? They've asked for $125,000 for as long as I've been here, and all we've been able to give them is enough to take care of dangerous trees, right? Should we be looking at a $500,000 for Parks and Recreation, which would get them about $100,000?
No, it would be 50,000.
No.
Yeah.
1 mil would be about,
1 mill would be about 200,000.
Yeah.
1 mil would be.
$197,800 to be exact. That's from.
So they would get they would get close to their 100,000, right?
Yeah.
Now, let's just set that aside, right?
That's right.
We're not deciding anything, we're 2 for roads, half for parks, recreation. The number one concern is safety, right? 66% of the general fund is police, correct? So if we don't get additional funds, we would be looking at reducing our police force. Is that fair to say?
It's very fair to say that's the largest employee
Okay.
pool.
So then should we have a safety levy for police at some figure? I don't know what it would need to be, Chuck. Do you have a sense of what the millage would be?
Well, again, you've got $200,000 for each 1 mill. Here's a number that we need to generate $600,000. Here's a number we need to generate $800,000.
I guess that's what's to figure out.
Okay, there's also another thing with a levy that we have to be concerned about. You know, we talk about this levy generating X number of dollars. The problem is that levy will never increase in the dollar amount that we generate. So if we put the levy on for 3 years, 5 years, whatever that number is, as those costs continue to increase, we're still going to have some potential for deficit as we get out to that far end. So do you build that in? I don't know. Do you get yelled at if you build it in by the electorate by billing it for too much? Or you just bite off what you need right now and see what happens? I mean,
that's the discussion
that's
we
the
need.
discussion.
Yeah, that's the discussion. How much would people be able to handle, right? And that would be, I've heard 3 mills for safety was tossed out. I mean, somewhere. So that's 3 and 2 and 1 is 6. Did I do that right? The math right? Christine's
You had
math.
a half for
Half.
recreation.
Oh, half. Yeah, so that's 3,
Let's call it 5.5.
5.5. Yeah.
Joe, in your opinion, is the $600,000 sufficient
Yeah,
general fund for
when we did the analysis, when we were proposing the income tax increase, the number that I'd worked on with our finance director was closer to 800 and some, I don't remember what the exact figure was. And that's where that million came from that we've rounded it up to. But it was 800 and some thousand. And that's, taken away the inheritance tax, the local government fund, the tangible personal property money, I'm trying to think of what the other ones were, the changes that were implemented in the new tax laws. And I think to address the comment you made earlier, if we were to maintain the amount of money that we had lost from the local government that we became so used to depending on, our income tax is creeping up. It's going in the right direction, but a 3% increase in income tax amounts to less than $100,000. I mean, it's talking $1,500 or $15,000, $20,000. So that may be that's going to continue to grow. Whereas, as Mr. Tisch had pointed out, if it's a levy, whatever that voted levy is at the time, that's the dollars that you stay with for that 5-year period of that levy. It doesn't inflate.
I think a more depressing thing I heard was we won't see the money until 2018.
And that's another big problem, that we
Which
still have a
means
year to get through.
2017 is another year of austerity,
Right.
some kind of transition plan. What I was thinking...
That's my concern in
Yeah.
trying to scrape and save everything we can this year so we have
So we can-
carryover to get us through 18,
Yeah.
and with the hope of having something passed.
Well, Mr. Morvay had mentioned that we need to spend time in this room looking out. I know we need, to survive this year. I know that 2017 is going to be a transition year before we get the funds that we need. The funds won't last probably as long as we need them. So John was talking about us getting together and talking about a longer-term plan. So we look out 5 years and say, look, MCCTC's coming in, bringing some money. I always forget the name of that. Windsor House coming in. There's some jobs. Maybe if we look out longer, further, we could figure out how to increase our coffers by bringing in more people or jobs.
Well, again, a
We're looking
quick
for different ways of doing it.
quick calculation was done based on the jobs that would be created by Windsor House, and they actually did the calculation for us, that their 72 jobs are only bringing in around, I believe it was 30,000. So we would need close to 3,300 new jobs to make up the 800,000.
I wasn't speaking so much of making up the whole loss, Joe. I was speaking about how we might make up the incremental stuff. That Chuck was saying, things are going to creep up. Costs are going to creep up.
Yeah,
right?
well, we'd hope, yeah.
Or maybe we could look at other revenue streams or collaborate. I don't know. Let's get together. Maybe we could buy a truck with the township and save some money through collaboration. A lot of towns are trying to do that. I'm just saying, why don't we put our heads together and try to look at the long term? You had a more specific suggestion.
Yeah, what I was going to propose is this. We need to know what we want to look like in 5 years. Where do we want to be in 5 years? What's the city going to look like? It's got to be Joe's input, it's got to be Christine's input, Mike's input, Todd's input, the chief, everybody's input. What does your department want to look like? Where are you going to be in 5 years? We have to kind of get a vision here. And with that, some kind of population growth. What's our population going to do? Is it going to decrease? Is it going to increase? Are we going to promote businesses? How are we going to? And so I propose that, and I said this to Joe, we meet once a week until we get this plan, this vision in cement. And so that we have some kind of place to go, tell people where we're going, what we want to be, what we want to look like, what are we going to need to get there. And so that's what I'm proposing. My time, I run a business, I teach during the evenings, some evenings. my mornings are my time that I can donate. And I would suggest that it's Tuesday morning, Wednesday morning, 6 o'clock in the morning, that we get together, it's an hour, it's publicized, invite the public in, get their input on this too. What do they want the community to look like? Then we update the Facebook every week. Here's the comments that were made this week. Do you have anything that you people want to add, young people, that zing and zag and
Right.
whatever,
Twitter.
yeah. Do we want businesses, do we want to promote business in our town? And if so, how do we do that? E-commerce, is that a solution? I don't know. Fiber optics, so that we have this network that, people want to, I don't know. But that's what I'm proposing. And we do this once a week until we get this vision plan in place. And only then will we know where we're going to be in 5 years and what kind of money we're going to need in 5 years. And I think with that, it's more palatable to go to people and say, here's the plan, here's the vision, here's how we're going to get there. This is what we need. Again, open to the public, definitely. We want input on this. We need to take this strategic plan that was developed back when, 2004, we need to narrow it down and find out where we need to be. Realistic goals, realistic expectations. And so I'm available in the mornings. I'm a morning person. I can get up at 5:30, 5 o'clock if I have to. But that's when I know I have the time to put into this. So, but I'm open though. I think it's essential that we get this done.
I'll tell you, I'm in, and I wanted to ask a structural question, though. Is it possible that, does Patty have to be here at 6 o'clock in the morning with us, or could she just set it up the night before and we push a button? Or do you want to come in with us at 6 and leave at 1?
Depending if you're voting on it.
Yeah, no, as long as there's no business being, if it's a meeting just to discuss, then no,
okay.
Absolutely not.
So we wouldn't
Yeah, the reason
have to.
our hands are tied by the sunshine laws that you can't have more than 2 of you meet at any particular time. So in order, if I'm hearing this right, to be able to openly discuss this, we need to advertise it as a meeting.
Exactly.
And we can have that discussion, and then whatever we resolve from those meetings, bring back to this floor and then act on it.
Okay, so I didn't want you to have to get up 5 o'clock.
Now, she sometimes beats me here, so I don't think that's a problem.
Yeah, and I don't mean to be selfish, but that's my time. That's some free time that I have that I can devote to this, and I think it's essential that we do.
You guys,
Every day that I'm in town, I am available, but not 6:30. I'm afraid in the dark.
Okay.
summertime it's light.
6:15, it's light.
6:50.
How about winter? No, seriously, I'm available any day of the week.
Well,
And I like the idea.
And I like the idea too. My question is just on the timing issue of it. Would we be looking to do this in the summer months?
Right immediately next week.
Because if we can do that within the summer months, I'm okay.
Yeah,
But once it goes into other months, I draw a little bit of a problem with.
I would have to
We need
say
to have an
this.
answer real soon.
Yeah, no, I mean, this is probably going to take 10 to 12 meetings, essentially, is what I kind of figured.
I think it's great.
Once a week, and then you go back, you do homework, you come back the next week, and we're off and running. We can get the ball rolling by starting to get input from chief, from city manager, from Christy Clayton, Todd, Mike. We can have them start and write their input. And then next week, we get on this, and we do it until we get done.
Like a regular
Amen.
business.
Yeah, we get this vision plan in place, and then we know where we're gonna be in 5 years.
The issue that you have with all of that vision planning is that your crystal ball doesn't allow you to project costs that far into the future, let alone, you know, you're talking about 5 or 10 years.
A five-year
Well,
plan.
okay, if you're looking at a 5-year plan, I think if we were to go back 5 years from today and look at 2011, had we projected where we were, we'd have been doing something by now.
Yes.
But we didn't.
Yes.
Well, I think,
Joe's been pointing out the crisis ahead of us
For
from
5 years.
2011.
Well, I think ultimately we know that that things are going to increase. Not saying that we know the exact percentage or numbers of that, but we know it's going to increase. So with that in mind, I mean, we can try to come, I think, as close, not that we're going to hit it on the head, but knowing that, we can try to come closer knowing that it's going to increase.
John,
it's
what effect is United Healthcare pulling out of Obamacare going to have on the hospitalization program?
well, in my opinion, you haven't seen the increases yet. You
And there is my concern.
You have not even seen the
Okay,
increases in
so
healthcare.
when you plan strategically, you do the scan, right? And you say, what if this happens? What are we going to do? What if this happens? What are we going to do? What if this happens? So you don't have one, you know where you want to go, but you say, if healthcare plans triple, what happens to it? What are we going to do? If they remain the same, what are we going to do? I mean, we don't have to have a crystal ball.
There's some
We have to just look out into the future and say, what might happen with our population?
Yeah.
What might happen with, I don't know,
It's a
911?
It's a roadmap. It's better than what we have, which is
Amen.
nothing.
Amen.
Well, and I think if we're looking towards business or whatever direction we're looking towards, being able to put a 5-year plan together will ultimately help that, no matter what it may be, it will help structure to get more money into the city, regardless of the amount.
Yeah, I agree.
I think when we sit and examine this under a microscope, we're going to start out with a 1-year plan. Let's survive 16 because we have a budget, but we'll know on December 31st how good or how bad that budget was. And we have to get through 17, which even with the levy is going to be no help. 18 is where we start to generate. What is happening though, we're going to have a $10 to $12 million facility built here, and the real estate tax won't help us with that, but it does because our school benefits, our joint fire benefits, whether you're in the city or in the township. But if we can somehow do some things in the city to enhance, we just failed to get 20 building lots approved on North Broad Street.
Exactly.
Those houses are not going to appear. I talked to Sam Pizzulo yesterday. He's backing out of that deal. Okay. We somehow have to get some growth. Okay. I keep looking at Redgate Farm and I see it as an asset. I don't know how we're going to capitalize on that yet, but it's an asset. We have to bring things in, and we're working on some of those things. We're working on them. Let it go at that.
Well, here,
But
I'm sorry, go ahead.
we have to start to talk together. Okay. We just can't leave it to chance, because chance is going to be a catastrophe.
So it looks like a lot of heads are nodding that we want to look out into the future.
I want
And
to
we need
make
to pick. We need to pick a day of the week, and if we can only get 4 of us, 4, we catch the 5th person up. I mean, things happen, right? Well, we'll all try to be here. I think the first order of business, though, back to our original conversation was, I think we have to decide how many levies we're putting on the ballot and what is the size of the, if it's 1 or 3, what are the sizes? We've got to reach agreement and then start communicating that along with the consequences of not doing that. I'm still not clear on what the consequences are. I know it's a disaster. I mean, that's the word. I could look that up in a dictionary. But someone might say, what exactly does that mean? Does it mean we're going to lose 4 police officers?
I thought I was under the impression it would be at least 6.
Well, whatever it is, whatever, you know, I'll bow to the people with more experience. But we need one story.
Right.
We need to go out with not how many, 5 of us or 6 of us. We need one story that we all agree with. We can tell it any way we want, but the facts need to be the same. Did we lose $1 million or is it 800,000? I've heard different numbers. I would like to know what makes up that million? I know two big hitters, but what about the rest? Was it loss of interest, whatever?
There were about 8 factors.
Let's get the
involved.
numbers that add up
I wish I'd have saved
to-
it, but I've been working with the finance director to get that information
Oh, yeah,
retrieved again.
all I'm saying, Joe, is I think that needs to be part of our story, because those are the kind of questions we're getting when we kind of, talk about it. They push us back, like they did last Saturday, say, well, what are you gonna do about it? And we're going, well,
I don't know, doesn't cut it.
no, yeah.
I said
and,
levy. This coming Saturday, I'm comfortable.
With saying a levy.
We're gonna put a levy or
We don't know
levies on. I would like to determine that tonight, if we could.
Okay.
Not chipping in granite, just,
Another factor. Each one though that you put on is gonna cost somebody with a $100,000 tax valuation on their house, $8 a month, approximately, $8.25, or $100 a year.
may I interrupt you, since I already interrupted you? That proverbial $100,000 house out there, when I look at my tax docket, and I happen to have it in there, the $100,000 house to the auditor doesn't mean $100,000 house that you live in.
Take a look at what it says on your tax duplicate, it's tax valuation.
Yeah,
Right.
he's
Tax
using
valuation number.
he's using the terminology that you guys are on the same page.
I know. My point being, I'm trying to get from the auditor their calculation
Mm-hmm.
as to what that $129,900 house on Hilltop sells for, what that house, that $250,000 house
Mm-hmm.
over on Timber Run or where I live, okay? And tell people honestly, this is about the kind of house you're living in, and this is about what's gonna actually happen to you, because it's misleading if you talk about the auditor's $100,000 house. I think he divides by 35.
Well, it takes 35%.
Right.
Of what the sale price.
Okay, so what I think
He
people
takes
would ask
35% of the
us,
sales price. But you take that proverbial $100,000 house, if you divide by 35, that number goes up. Okay, that's my point.
Okay.
So I'm trying to get real numbers to hand out to the people and say, your $150,000 market value house
is
is
going
going
to cost you this. And do we know what the median value is in the city?
I don't.
It's probably a number that's available. What is the median house valued at? And then do the math and say, this is what it would mean on your tax bill for 3 meals, 1 meal, or half. So we have the answer to that, but we don't have that answer now. I think we need to get that.
Ralph Meacham, if he doesn't have it, can guesstimate it, and he's the expert in the county, and I have a nice relationship with him. He's very, very helpful. I would be willing to go and try and get that in understandable terms.
Because that's the next question you're going to ask, right? What is it, I heard you need.
What's it gonna cost me?
Yeah, what
Right.
is it going to cost me? So we have to have that answer, I think. And then that's part of our story. The consequences, if we do nothing, here's the cost to be the city we were in 2014, whatever, and start telling that story in many ways as we can.
And I think we have transparency, is that a good word? If I make that calculation, oh my, I lack in knowledge and I might draw some erroneous conclusions, but if it comes out of the auditor's office, and I think he's willing to put his head on the block and say, yeah, this is an estimation because we can't get it within an hour. I think it should become very believable. We have a vested interest in this. I want it to be the lowest number I can get. The auditor hopefully will give us the most accurate number available.
I don't mean to jump around, but I just wanted to digress back to the police issue. It's a little bit more convoluted than that. And Joe, correct me if I'm wrong. So Chief Colucci can use part-time workers right now so that he doesn't have to use full-time overtime, right? So now we cut, in the contract, we gotta cut part-time
That has to be removed
before we,
That's where your 6 comes up.
yeah, before we cut full-time.
There it is.
So now we cut part-time, and now we have to pay overtime. So then we're back where we started. So it's really,
That's why
we
217
gotta sit
is-
down, guys, and we gotta start putting this together. We gotta start this vision. We gotta find out where we're at, where we're going, period.
Well, as you talk about the vision, is it, could we start with containment, you know, how are we gonna contain it?
We're gonna get
How are we
there.
gonna stop the bleeding?
Yeah.
I don't wanna wait 6 weeks.
No, we're gonna get there by coming up with this vision plan. We're gonna know that. We're gonna know what we need.
I guess I don't wanna say anxious, but, I would really like.
You want it now.
I would like us to be able to say, yeah, here's, you know, do we have enough information right now to determine what we need to get back to even? Do we have that information? Is it $1 million?
Based on what you're talking about.
Based on,
Go ahead, Joe.
yeah, based on the information that I'd gotten from the finance director 2 years ago, it was around 800 and some $1,000 to make up the difference of our losses from the several items, the inheritance tax obviously being the biggest one. And
So is it 800,000 or is it $1 million?
it was 800 and some thousand, right?
Okay.
I have that number.
That's 2 years ago.
Right.
But I
Okay.
don't have the backup that supported that from when we discussed it, and she's been tied
So we
up
know how
to
much we
beyond-
need, right?
Right.
And we've decided on the tool we're gonna use,
A levy.
a levy. Let's just pick the millage we need
8.5 million.
that we could sell.
5 mils should get us $1 million.
You're gonna make up 800,000 in the police, that's 4.
But that was
If
2
you're
years
gonna-
old.
If you're going to make up the 2 mils in public works, that's 2. Then your other half, so you're, what did I say? I just said 8.5.
I don't think we can
good.
bulk all of that into one. I mean,
You
I
can't
think,
do
I
it,
think,
I don't think
that's-
you should do it as one levy.
Yeah, I think that's asking for a lot of money to fix all the, I'm not saying that I don't want to fix all the problems from each separate one of those piles.
You aren't
I
fixing
understand.
it though, right? I mean, it's just taking us back to
I
square
understand,
one.
but we have to understand too that.
But Joe,
if-
I'm sorry to interrupt,
Okay.
but the 800,000 just makes up for the money that's been cut from us, but it doesn't take into consideration the additional expenses that Mr. Tishy brought up, the 25% increase in healthcare, the,
$100,000.
I'm trying to remember, some of that was probably the biggest hit we took. Just operational, the salt. Salt was another big hit we took in 2 years when it jumped from $40 a ton up to $105 a ton. Those items too, you have to take into consideration if you're going to ask for a levy to maintain just the same services. You have what was taken away from us from the state. You also have increases in expenses to
Right.
give you that.
So to maintain the services people have been accustomed to, we need $1 million,
Yes.
close to $1 million.
I think I could almost tell that story based on what I'm hearing now and about the salt and the this and the that and so
So
on.
Donnie's concern was.
My concern
I know
was
it
is, all I'm saying is
Can we-
if we're gonna go and ask for a levy, we're all under the impression that we're gonna put a levy out there and it's gonna pass.
Well, I think that's where I am.
So, with looking at it to say, okay, we want this to pass, we need to be, I think, very cautious on the millage that we put out there and what we're gonna utilize it for specifically, because if we go too high, they're gonna vote it down.
I think that we're going to have to put individual levies on. I think you need to have Title I levy, safety levy, if it's going to be for the police department, specifically spell it out for that. People could make a decision whether they want to support that or not. The second levy is going to be for street maintenance, construction maintenance and repair fund for street resurfacing. And the third, if we're going to do it, is the Parks, Recreation, Cemetery Board, if we're going to do a $500,000 there and put all 3 of those on. Now, the question would be, do you want to divide the police levy up into bids? Do you want to have 2 police levies on? Taking the chance that one passes and one doesn't, that at least gives you some money.
Right.
Is that your thinking?
I'm
just verbalizing what I'm hearing.
Yeah, I guess that's just where I'm kind of going. I'm not saying that that's the direction we need to go in. I'm just saying I'm putting it out there to try to give us more choices and more things to choose from, and not only us, but the public.
The public on election day is going to have a school levy renewal.
Right.
And if we put, let's say 3, let's say it's safety, let's say it's road maintenance and let's say it's recreation, our electorate is going to be looking at 4 levies.
Right.
Are we going to scare them? I walked into this meeting wanting 1 levy, police levy, okay? I'm listening to what I'm hearing here, primarily from Chuck and from Joe. Maybe the answer is, hey, smorgasbord, and you pick and choose, and let's hope that it happens right for us, okay? I don't think the world comes to an end if recreation goes down, but I'll vote for a $500,000. I don't care what it's for. It's a nothing to me. 3 mils, 4 mils, 5 mils, or 5.9 like that school levy, that scared some people, and that impacted some people with real American dollars.
But I guess that's my question then. If we do put, say, 4 levies on, or there's going to be 4 levies on the ballot.
If we put 3, that'll be 4.
I'm saying if you put 4 on there, and you have a 5 mil, a 3 mil, and a $0.5 mil? Is that what we were saying?
3, 2.5.
3, 2,
a 3, 2.5. The public might look at that and say, well, you know what, I'll vote for the half, because I'm willing to do that. And then the other gets scorched. So I guess that's what I'm looking at too. So do we want to do that, or do we just want to say, listen, let's just put the 1 police levy on for X amount of mil, figure that out, put that on there, and leave the other ones, not that we're not going to fix the problems, but leave that for a later time to address those questions and answers, and just get it so that people aren't looking to say, well, I'm just going to vote for this $500,000. You should be happy with that. I voted for that. Now I'm not going to vote for this.
So in 2018, let's follow this conversation, right? In 2018, we'll start to get 3 mils worth of money for the police, right? And the potholes will start, right? So we wait and put a levy on for roads the next year after they bang all the potholes, right? And then you got to go back and fix 20 years worth of roads, because every time you don't repair a road, you got more roads to repair. So I think we put our story together and go for what we need. That's what I think. Just my opinion.
Let me say this out loud and try, the 4 of you, please don't start laughing too loud, because these people will embarrass ourselves. What if we went with an operating levy? Might that be easy for them to grasp? If we can tell our story between now and November, the city, we're in trouble with our roads, we can't continue to maintain them. We have to support our police department because bad things happen. If we lay off, we get rid of all the part-timers. We have an unemployment insurance thing that bites us on the backside. I mean, it's horrific, the little bit that I understand about that situation. Would the term operating levy be more palatable to the public?
I don't think so.
To the public?
I don't think so, because operating is way too general.
Chuck, I knew when I said it, I want input.
Well, I think that's good discussion.
Yeah.
I
think police, if you're getting back to your questionnaire,
was the number 1 thing.
Police is number 1.
By far.
But I guess this is my thing. So if we're saying on, going back to the numbers though, and I know we don't have those exact numbers, but if we put on a 5 mil at a person with the average $100,000 home, we're just saying that, right? So we're saying that's about $300 more a year?
5 mil.
About $300 per person more a year.
It's 500.
5 mils is on a $100,000 house is $500.
So that's
That's the auditor's $100,000 home. Is
What
that
did you
my
call
house?
it before?
The taxable value.
Taxable value.
okay. Even with that being said, so if I have to pay as a city resident another $500 more a year, plus another 3 mil, which is how much more a year?
300.
3. Now we're at $800 more out of my pocket, right? And a half.
Right.
And that's how much more is a half?
I don't know. That's what we're going to get.
So you're looking at about $850 to $900 more out of a pocket that you want
exactly
the people to give.
Exactly.
I don't think if we put all those on there, that's going to happen.
Well,
a $100,000 house tax value
I don't see it.
would be a saleable house sold for $285,000.
I just don't see somebody spending, basically, you're getting an extra $1,000 that you got to spend.
Yep. Well, here's the choice that's in front of. See, first of all, it's this is where how my mind's working. This is our problem. 7,500 people in this city have this problem. And if they don't want to pay for these things, we won't have them. And we need to tell them that we're going to lose 6 police officers, and it won't be as safe as it was. And student performance correlates with how safe children feel. You know, we got the essays, most of the elementary school kids talked about how safe they feel. I can walk down the street, I can go get a Dairy Queen. They named the SRO by name. I mean, if this city is not willing to pay for that, then we have to accept the consequence, which is our parks are going to continue, they're going to be worse than they were, our roads are going to get more potholes, and we're going to be less safe. The voters have the final say, always, and we just have to make sure they understand what they're doing when they vote no on this stuff.
I agree.
And I could live with no.
I'm just saying, though, if we put all of that out there, I don't think that every one of those levies will pass. So why put them all out there? Not saying that we shouldn't put them. We need it. I understand that. But why not concentrate specifically on our number one top list thing that was the most important thing in this community is our safety.
That's right.
And put it strictly on this, at this point in time right now, on our safety issue of what we want to be safe in Canfield, and put those eggs in that basket instead of diluting it through all these other levies that we're never going to get somebody to pay an extra grand out of every single person an extra grand. That's not going to happen.
What if we put a 3.9 police levy out there, like Donnie is advocating? 3.9. It's not 4. It's to buy something at $1.99.
Right.
3.9 police levy. We're going to have the better part of $800,000. That's making inroads to our problem. Now we look inside our operation, okay, where can we cut? Leaf pickup, oh, God, I wish I'd never said that. Okay, concerts on the green, donation for 4th of July, donation for first night, but we're getting a good response with the voters' involvement. I got the list here.
And we might not have those things, but we're going to be safe.
Yeah.
You understand what I'm saying? We might not have those things, but we're going to be a safe community.
I could live with that. If we can get a 3.9 mill levy, and that is.
I'm not